episode 4 of the Pucks Out podcast, a member of Penalty Box Radio Network. I'm Bobby Butler, and with me, as always, Mr. Brandon Bond.
Hello.
We are here in the Standing Stone Farm studio, and we got a great show for you today. So it's time to crack open a cold one and talk some hockey and pop culture. Today's beer is Yuengling Black and Tan.
We try to keep it classy for you guys. Only the finest while we're talking sports.
That's actually the first time I've had this beer. Not bad. I thought it was going to be a little bit darker.
Yeah, I've had it a couple times. I'm more of a classic Yuengling guy myself, Bobby. But I'll let it pass because we got a lot to talk about.
Yeah, but first, before we get into how we're doing, I have a quick apology I need to get to. It's not as nearly as bad as what Brandon had to apologize for, but last week, I talked a lot of shit about Black Abbey Brewing and that beer that I drank during the Super Bowl. Well, I want apologies to Black Abbey. It was actually Black Stone Brewing. So
Rookie mistake.
I got back home, I opened the fridge, and I was like, oh, shit.
Luckily, we don't influence enough people to have caused any damages to Black Abbey or Blackstone, really. Yeah. Everybody's like, we're not going to drink either of those anyway.
Anyway, how you doing today, man?
Doing good. Looking forward to this show. We having Justin Bradford on a little later, so I'm excited to see him. I think we're going to talk a little bit about the SECHC tournament this weekend that you actually did a few stats for.
Yeah, I was working up in the press box. You know, it was a good time.
Ford Ice Center in Bellevue is awesome.
Yeah,
it was really cool. They had the Draft Picks restaurant, and you told me about it, and I figured it was just going to be almost concession stand-esque type. Man, they had some really, really good food. The buffalo chicken Southwest egg rolls. You had
Excellent.
Some of those, right? You had some of those. You said their wings were really good.
Wings were solid. So let's move on to some news. Unfortunately, it seems like every time after we get done recording this show, some news drops right then. So we're always late to the punch with the news. But I guess really the only NHL news going on this week is the trade between Toronto Maple Leafs and Los Angeles.
Nobody looks at us as hard hitters, though, Bobby. They're not coming to us for the news. They're coming to laugh.
So Jack Campbell and Kyle Clifford are headed to Toronto from L.A., and in return, LA's getting Trevor Moore, a third-round pick in 2020 and a third-round pick in 2021. Some quick stat rundowns for these guys. Jack Campbell, 28-year-old goalie. He's been 8-10-2 with a 2.85 goals against.
I do want to interject here real quick and say his stats this year are... LA's been terrible, so his stats this year are a little reflective of that. He had a much better season last season, but go ahead. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to. I totally meant to interrupt you, but
he's got a .900 save percentage. Most of the season, all of the season, he's been the backup for Jonathan Quick. So, he's filling in right now. Freddie Anderson's got a neck injury, which I don't know if we've had an update on recently.
I think he's actually skating
now
with the team, but that could mean a lot of things for a goalie.
Yeah. So now looking at Kyle Clifford, 29-year-old forward, he has 14 points this season, 6 goals, 8 apples, 45 PIMs in 53 games. He's got 129 points and 819 PIMs in 660 games with the Kings. And he actually won the Cup in 12 and 14 with LA. So they got a little veteran presence there, and some depth to go with the Leafs.
Got them Cup winners.
Yeah,
they've been there before.
Yeah.
No, I think it was a good move for Toronto for sure. I absolutely understand. Even with even if he is skating, if he'll be back soon, whatever. You got to have some goalie depth going down the stretch here, if only for the fact that you realize, oh, my goalie can get hurt, and I need something a little better than, I think it was McElhinney. It was the backup there in Toronto. Yeah. So I think it was a good move for them to get a little depth in the goaltending crease. In LA last year, he kind of, quick on and off, playing bad, hurt as well. He did a really good job filling in last year a little more so than this year. But LA is just, it's imploding from the team that, pretty recently was winning cups.
It's looking like no California teams are going to make the playoffs. So...
Yeah, and it's another great reason to love hockey, the parity. We got Chicago's not what they were at one point. LA's not what they were at one point. At some point, Boston and the Capitals won't be what they are at this point. And so everybody really has a chance. I'm really, really looking forward to the playoffs this year, man. There's going to be...
Hopefully our Preds are there.
We'll see. We'll see.
Speaking of the Preds, we're recording this on Monday night. We're finishing off the road trip tonight in Vancouver. So far, we've got 4 out of 6 points. It's a late game tonight, and, you guys know this because you listen to this on Wednesday. Hopefully they can pull this off. I would like to at least see them get the loser point tonight. And I think if they can get the loser point tonight, then it would have been a successful road trip.
Yeah, definitely would love to see them come out of this road trip 6 out of 8 points, but 5 would be fine as well. Vancouver's tough, man. I mean, we just need to go in there and they do what they do well, and so it's a late game.
They trounced us earlier in the season, but this is not the same Preds team. This is a different Preds team. They're looking good. I think that if they can have a good showing tonight, they've confirmed that they've turned a corner and they're in the playoff push.
They definitely have looked different. You know, when we kind of talked about, I think episode 1, where we would kind of know the new John Hines team starting with the Toronto game. It didn't look strong. Your prediction didn't look strong then, but then you've seen stretches. The biggest thing is they've got to be more consistent. They haven't had a 4-game win streak since November.
They haven't
October,
had a 3-game win streak
since
since November.
Right, and the longest win of the season is 4, right?
Yeah, I think so.
So
that was back
3
in
games,
October, maybe.
3 games. That's
we got to
in
get
such
those.
a tight contested race. You gotta get some wins.
Yeah, and hey, the other night they dropped 2 against Oilers after being up 2-1.
Yeah,
but you know what? I was able to watch some of that game while I was working the press box at the SEC HC tournament, and they looked good. They made some mistakes towards the end of the second. The wheels started falling off a little bit.
Well, and Leon.
But, I mean, you're playing the Oilers. You're playing 2 of the best scorers right now in the league. I mean
Leon
Draisaitl and Connor McDavid are going to score.
They're going to score, absolutely, and so you've kind of staved it off. You staved it off up until the end, and then
Soros had some awesome saves, but I mean,
thank goodness I convinced you to switch to McDavid with me on the points award, man, because you almost took Draisaitl.
Yeah, and it looks like the old Honda Civic is going to win the Rocket Richard, man.
Don't hate on a Honda Civic. They're reliable.
Yeah, we're
definitely. Pasta's kind of sliding behind, but since you doubled down on that, you know who I'm going to be cheering for, as well as my boy Pasta. Austin Matthews is tied with 40 goals. He doesn't have Mike Babcock holding him down anymore, so maybe he'll just take the lead on old Ovechkin. We'll give you guys a late season update closer to time when awards will be picked, probably before playoffs, of where we stand.
Yeah. So quick update: the Islanders are up on the Caps 1-0. So we'll be keeping track of that during the show, and let you know if Ovi hits 700, which you would already know by the time this show drops.
Yeah. So we're gonna let you know again, just in case you didn't know. All right, man. So we actually went to the SECHC tournament this weekend. For those of you that are unfamiliar, the SECHC stands for the Southeastern Collegiate Hockey Conference. They have 16 teams in the conference, so we got to see a few games on Saturday. We got to see the losers bracket. We got to see Tennessee, South Carolina in the morning. And then we got to see FAU, Georgia Tech. And the final game we got to watch was Arkansas, Georgia. And that was an awesome game for sure. I mean, ended up being 2-1, late goal to send Arkansas through to the next round. But the actual tournament champion was who? Ole Miss? Is that right?
Yeah.
Auburn and Ole Miss they actually had the game after the Georgia Arkansas game, and it went. We had to get out of there, but it went super late, right? It went to 2 overtimes. Is that correct?
Something like that. I don't have the stats in front of me right now.
Hopefully nobody will stat check us so we don't have to do another apology next week. 3 in a row. Yeah. That's embarrassing, man.
But yeah, it was a really fun weekend. Loved the bar there. We had to do my punishment for the Super Bowl predictions there, and that's up on Twitter.
He got out pretty weak. He just had to chug a pretty weak IPA. So.
Yeah, well, it is what it is. Well, the punishments will get worse sometimes. Sometimes it'll be easy.
The thing is, when you're doing all the punishments, even the easy ones start to add up, right? Because you've yet to beat me on anything. I will not be punished. Maybe we should put tattoos on the wheel.
Yeah. Anyway, so this past weekend was the XFL opening weekend, and man, I gotta say, I was impressed. I enjoyed
didn't-
watching those games.
I didn't get to watch a lot of them, but from what I did see, hey, you know my opinion, brother. Football is football.
Yeah.
And so we don't have any football. And so we decided that we're going to pick a team, right? Because that's what we do. We just
Yeah.
pick teams to cheer for, and then we're irrationally mad when they don't do well. We kind of landed on the same one, right?
Yeah. So I am for the NFL, I'm a Redskins fan because that's where I was born, right near DC. So I'm a Washington Redskins fan. And so naturally I went for the DC Defenders because maybe then it'll be a winning team in Washington.
I was going to say, I'm going to actually like the only winning team in the DC area. So this podcast is now a DC Defenders podcast, buddy. We'll update you about other stuff that happens to be going on. I don't know if it's going to be a weekly update or a monthly update, but we'll tell you what's going on in the XFL. So DC Defenders, but there was some good football.
Yeah.
Honestly, from
Honestly, it's
what I
fun to
saw,
watch.
I mean, football is, like I said, football is football. I love watching football all levels. And these guys are pretty good. I think it'll be almost a good farm system for the
And
the
you can definitely
NFL.
tell that the experience isn't there for a lot of the players. I can't remember what team he plays on. Marquette King, the former Raiders punter.
Mhm.
Great punter. He's got a leg on him.
Yeah, it's not really different from game to game, right? It's in punting. You just punt
Well,
it.
he had an amazing punt, landed right on the one, and one of the punt coverage guys decided he was going to try and grab it, and he ended up pushing it into the end zone. So, yeah.
So it's one of those rare occasions where the punter gets to remount a guy instead of the other way around. So yeah, but I believe that the league is doing replay of every play that happens
Something
in
like
real
that, yeah.
time. Something.
I mean, I really like the aspect of seeing into the press box where the officials are when they're reviewing, and they're using Xbox controllers to rewind it
Right.
and fast forward and pause it. I think that's pretty cool. And seeing
It's just like a couple of guys like us, man. Vince McMahon found some guys that could run an Xbox and was like, "Hey, you want to do some replay for us?" Finally, the fans are getting a voice. But I love how they did the kickoffs where they're about 20 yards up from the kicker, 10 yards up from the kicker,
I believe the kickers are at the 35 on
and they're
away, and then the receiving team and then the kicking team players are like only 5 or 10 yards away from each other, and they can't move until they catch the ball.
They catch the ball. I liked it because they were close. It gives you a good where you're going to see some good coverage and some chance for good returns.
And you
but
don't
at
have
the
the
same
issues
time,
of the head injuries.
these guys aren't running 60, 70 yards down the
I
field.
thought you were about to say
Full
60 or
head.
70 miles per hour. Like, I don't know what you've been watching.
I've been watching a lot of Animal Planet, Bobby. I think that Chris Johnson, the cheetah. You remember when that happened, man? When Chris Johnson said he was going to race a cheetah, as if Chris Johnson's probably top out speed, one of the fastest guys ever in the NFL, was his top out speed had to be like 27, 28 miles an hour, if that. I don't know what the fastest.
I think Dale Green, who's the fastest in the NFL, was like max out 29.
Cheetahs can run like up to 70 miles an hour at the distance that he was talking about running. Like 70 miles,
That's
you
interstate.
have to be able to run on the interstate to go that fast. So yeah. So anyway,
But yeah,
that was cool, man. That was the cool kickoff.
Yeah, so a little bit earlier, we sat down and had a phone call with Justin Bradford, the host and editor-in-chief of Penalty Box Radio and the commissioner of the SECHC. It was a pretty good phone call, and here's that phone call. Bobby Butler and Brandon Bond here with Justin Bradford, host and editor-in-chief of Penalty Box Radio and commissioner of the SECHC. How's it going, Justin?
It's going all right. Just really tired and exhausted, but it was definitely worth it after a very, very big weekend for us in college hockey.
Yeah, we were gonna say, man, you just had a pretty successful tournament, didn't you?
Yeah. So I say it pretty much every year. It seems that it's the most successful tournament that we've ever had, and I'll say that again this year. It's the most successful tournament we've ever had. Big crowds at the new rink in Bellevue. College hockey continues to grow. I mean, our conference is 16 teams this year, and the top 8 made it to the tournament. A 6 seed in Ole Miss, they won the championship, their first time ever winning the SECHC, and in their 10th year to boot. And the number 7 seed Auburn, their first ever number 7 seed to win in the semifinals. They upset the South Carolina Gamecocks for the 2nd year in a row. Last year they did that as a 6 seed over a 3 seed. So a lot of fun this weekend. Big crowds came out, people coming to support the alma mater and fans just of college hockey in general. And I mean, thank you for coming out as well to experience it. Just glad you guys got to enjoy a little bit of it and see what it's all about.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I had fun doing stats one of the days, but we had some questions for you. Some hockey, some college hockey, some non-hockey stuff. I wanted, I played a club sport in college. I played rugby at MTSU, and it's a lot of fun. But one of the biggest issues is kind of working with the school, getting recognized. So have you run into that a lot with college hockey and these teams, trying to get more recognition from the school itself, getting some funding, places to practice?
Yeah, that is one of the things, the challenges that we always face is funding mostly, and then licensing when it comes to school logos, things like that. Every school is a little different, so some schools obviously give a little bit more support than others. Some schools may get a few $1,000s from their club sports. Other ones may get a few $100s. So fundraising is a really big issue that a lot of these schools have to face. A lot of the big challenges come with that. For instance, the University of Georgia, they have a 501c3 foundation that helps them out a lot. They don't get as much monetary support from the school, but they do get support in other ways, like through publicity and everything. And then a lot of these schools also face the challenge of not having a rink in the town that they are in.
Oh, wow.
So some schools will travel 45 minutes to an hour and a half just to practice or to play their games. For instance, Florida, they're in Gainesville. They are usually going to Jacksonville or Orlando or Tampa even. Sometimes Auburn has to play their games in Columbus, Georgia. Florida State there's no rink in Tallahassee, so their home rink is actually Columbus, Georgia. So that's a little far away. So it's really lucky for Vanderbilt and MTSU to be so close to these rinks here in the
Yeah, and I mean, originally I thought MTSU had it rough having to go up to Antioch or Bellevue, but it sounds like they have it pretty easy.
Well, I'll tell you. After watching some hockey this weekend at that tournament, you really couldn't tell if that these guys are, they play good hockey. I was pleasantly surprised by that. Another thing we wanted to ask you regarding the SCCHC was, how did you get involved with that? What was the process you started to get this together?
Yeah, so back in the lockout, so back in 2012, we were just looking for things to do with Penalty Box Radio, and we see that Vanderbilt had a club hockey team.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so you know what? We should get in touch with Vanderbilt and see, if they have any coverage. And they didn't have any coverage. They'd play their games at Centennial Sportsplex or A Game Sportsplex in Devon Frank when it existed. And a lot of the times, in terms of Friday night games, they'd start at 10:30 at night, and so you're not getting out of there until way past midnight. Or they'd be on Saturday or Sunday morning at maybe 9 a.m. So it was one of those things that we just wanted to get involved. So myself and Pat Fuquay started doing some of these games and doing play-by-play and color commentary in the games and just having fun with it and getting involved. It gave us some hockey to go see because there wasn't the Preds weren't playing,
right.
So there wasn't anything to do really. So we just started venturing out to see what other types of hockey there was in the area and in the South. And so we started doing that. And so getting more involved with Vanderbilt, I started doing PA with Vanderbilt a little bit. MTSU was starting to get their ICE program back on track. And so from there, I just started realizing, hey, there's more opportunity here to grow college hockey in the South. And so I joined up with the league to be the director of communications. And then now it's in 2018, I became commissioner.
Awesome. So one thing we're going to ask all the guests on our show, is to dig a little bit deeper into the fans of hockey. What would you say is your earliest hockey memory and what really got you into the sport?
I mean, what got me into the sport more was when I moved down to Tennessee from Michigan. I'm a General Motors baby.
Okay.
So my dad worked at the Saturn plant, and so brought us down here. I started following the Red Wings just because that was my connection back to home and family was the Red Wings. And the Predators didn't even exist at that time. So it was the early 90s. And so following it more, watching on TV when I could, especially the national broadcasts during the playoffs, and then just newspaper clippings before the internet was really a big thing.
when you had to really love the sport, you didn't just pull it up on your app.
Exactly. Yeah, and then the Predators came along. I was like, I want to go see the Red Wings play, and so we were able to go see the Red Wings in the first season. And they played the Predators, and that's obviously when there were plenty of Northerners still down here, where you had like a 50-50 split between Red Wings and Predators fans in the arena. It's obviously changed a lot.
Right.
Then. But that's really my earliest memories, was going to those games, and then even the playoff games in the early 2000s, of wearing a Red Wing shirt and a Predators hat, or vice versa. Being that Pred Wing, I was one of those people because it was hard. It was hard to kind of switch that role. when you're a kid, especially
Right.
because you grow up knowing these guys and following Steve Eiserman and Brendan Shanahan and Sergei Fedorov and Igor Larionov and Nick Lidstrom. And just grew up watching those. So when the new blood came in, it made it a lot easier to switch fandoms. But back then, it was still that was my earliest hockey memory was there because I really didn't grow up with having my family didn't really follow sports much. My dad wasn't into it much. Grandparents weren't into it as much. Not really uncles. So it was like an all me thing. It was a me thing to really get involved in sports and to really fall in love with it. So that's pretty much what I remember is just back in the mid 90s is following up in terms of playoffs and remembering the Red Wings and Avalanche play their bloodthirsty games against each other and seeing the highlights of those whenever I could. So that's really what got me into it.
Awesome. So we want to talk a little bit about the history of Penalty Box Radio. How did that get started? How did you decide to, start this, what's turned into a major Nashville media conglomerate?
So it was right before the lockout happened, myself and Ben Butzbach, we were on a podcast with another outlet before, and we started going and we made some connections and we were able to get a connection with 102.5 The Game, the ESPN affiliate for radio here in Nashville, and we were able to be given a time slot to where they would re-air our podcast, which was on Blog Talk Radio, of all things, that platform, and they would re-air it at midnight. We're like, this is cool. We get to record in the studio, and they're going to air it at midnight. Third shift people are going to love this. And when it started getting closer to the season and realizing, oh no, there's going to be a lockout, we're like, how are we going to have a radio show about hockey? Hockey's not being played. But that was actually a blessing in disguise for us because of what Penalty Box Radio has grown into today. That back then, we'd start our show with like the Law and Order theme and give a rundown of the lockout of it. So it wasn't necessarily much. So like with the whole Vanderbilt thing and the SCCHC hockey thing, we went and started finding other hockey to do. And so we went down to Huntsville, the UAH, the Division I NCAA team, and started going to those games a lot. We went over to the Knoxville Ice Bears and then went to one of their games. We started talking more about the Admirals, what was going on there. And we went on a road trip to the OHL, the Ontario Hockey League up in Canada and Michigan, and went and watched 5 junior hockey games in 4 days and reported on those and talked to some prospects. I mean, one of those, I remember being Alex Galchenyuk, that we talked to him right before he signed his deal with the Canadiens at the time and played in the World Juniors for USA. So it was kind of neat to see some of these guys before they became stars. And so finally, luckily, the lockout ended right at the start of the new year, and we were able to get going and talking NHL. But that's how we started. We were forced to talk about different types of hockey, which forced us to realize there's more than just the NHL out there. And that's what made us love the sport even more, was that we realized there's so much more when it comes to junior, college, semi-pro, all these different kinds of things of people that just love the sport.
Yeah, that's we obviously are very appreciative of how it's grown, and two guys like us can come in here and talk hockey in Nashville, Tennessee, which, like you said, this is not a hockey town originally. So we're not gonna let you get out of here with sneaking in a quick Preds question, but with Hines coming in, do you think that maybe his coaching style, how he approaches the locker room, do you think he could be at least partially responsible for Granlund turning around?
I mean, I think just in terms of the way that the system operates, it gives Mikael Granlund an opportunity to be a little more freewheeling with his style of play. And that's kind of what we've seen so far, is that he's out there working hard. He's been a workhorse, and he's doing absolutely everything he possibly can that we've seen him try to do before, but it seems like he's getting rewarded with more minutes on the ice. He's averaging over 2 more minutes than he was under Peter Laviolette. He is battling in front of the net. He is scoring more goals, obviously, but it seems like he feels more comfortable in whatever system it is that John Hines is really trying to push through, because you're seeing little bits and pieces of that system go out there. So I think that's what it is the comfort level, that he just looks comfortable in playing his game right now, and he never really looked like that.
Right. Yeah, him coming in from Minnesota, that was we were very excited with what he was going to be able to bring energy wise, loving Arvidsson and Grimaldi here. So it kind of felt like he was going to be a little bit of that workhorse. So it's good to see him turning around. So we have a couple questions outside of hockey. What's your favorite Star Wars movie? What do you like? We like Star Wars. We want to see what.
I mean, it's hard to go against Empire Strikes Back. That is
Yeah.
the best out of the series.
Agreed. You
Of
agreed.
course,
Hey, that's my number 2.
I mean, just because of the music in it as well, the music, the theming of it, one of the best sequels ever. Just because you start seeing all these things, the twist that we have in there
Right.
too, especially just thinking about even before it was before when I was born, but when that came out, the twist, that huge twist. So I mean, the way it ends as well, because they have to finish it up, the introduction of new characters too. So I love that as a movie. There's obviously other ones that I do love as well, but Empire Strikes Back, it's just none of them compared to it.
Hey,
Awesome.
if we, luckily me and Bobby don't have any points on this one because I would have won again.
Well, all right. So, as many people know, we are wrapping up today's episode our Star Wars discussion and moving on next week into Marvel. Now, a lot of people know that you're quite the Marvel fan. How many times did overall do you think you saw Infinity War and Endgame in theaters?
In Infinity War, I think it was 5 or 6 times, and Endgame, I think it was 11.
Oh, wow. So next week we'll be ranking our favorite Marvel movies. What would you say is your top 3 out of the Infinity Saga?
Oh gosh, that's so hard. I'll do top 3, but in terms like there's not a 1, 2, 3. There's just my 3 favorites.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
So it's like Civil War is definitely up there.
Okay.
I mean, it's just totally up there. Infinity War is up there as well, just because of the way that it was laid out. Just absolutely enjoyed that. And then it's hard to not put the original Avengers.
Yeah,
in there
that's
as
a
well.
great one. The Battle of New York is amazing. I still love that scene.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm actually playing a little catch up, Justin. I got into the Marvels about through Avengers 1, and so now I've got the whole series that I'm having to go back and watch. Thank goodness for Disney Plus, though. I'm able to catch up. So I haven't seen any of these 3, so I'm looking forward to watching all of them.
Now, a quick question. I noticed it's not in your top 3. What were your opinions on Thor Ragnarok?
Oh, I loved it.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it. I love how they went a different direction, because started wondering what more can they do with Thor, and then Taika Waititi gets in there and he changed it up, adds a little more humor to it. Because I mean, at the character of finding the arc of that character, what he's going to be, is very very important, and to cover that as well, leading into Infinity War too, it was fun. But they made it fun, they made it kooky, but they still had their point, and it also introduced us with Hulk being a little more aware of what he is and who he is, and having actual conversations and dialogue too, and kind of get Planet Hulk in there a little bit, throws that into the spectrum too, and it was just a neat way to do it. And then that just led into so many different things, but also taking some good, I don't say modern music, but some good classic rock, and throwing that in there as well to make it a lot more fun. So I like how they had fun with it. It's more self-aware, I think, too, with what more can you do with like the God of Thunder.
Right.
And I mean, at the end of the
There's only
day,
How much
into
cooler
it,
can you
kooky.
make him?
and I mean, at the end of the day,
Right,
these
right,
movies
so
are supposed to put a
that's
smile
fun.
on our face and be fun. And I like that one
Right.
wasn't as serious before they started getting to the real
Exactly.
serious stuff with Infinity War and Endgame.
Absolutely. And then you think that the way they end Thor Ragnarok is all of a sudden we're leading right into Infinity War with oh crap, and just boom right
Yeah,
into it.
it's the fun's over now. It's time to get to the end of the world stuff. But
Exactly.
well, before we leave, the Preds to play tonight. When this comes out, they would have played a couple nights ago, but with the trade deadline on the way, it's just about 2 weeks away now. How many points before the trade deadline do you think the Preds need to get to become buyers, and what do you think that they're going to do?
I mean, that's a loaded question. So the way I'm seeing it, if they win, if for instance this was on a Monday night, if they're able to get out of that road trip with 6 out of 8 points, it's a successful road trip, a hugely
Yeah.
successful road trip
definitely.
given the teams that they're playing against. If they lose, then that's just 4 out of 8 per se. They get 1 more point, you get 5 out of 8. I still think it's successful. So what I think they need to be in terms of positioning is just be no more than say 4 or 5 points out of playoff position to still think that, hey, we can make a run. I think that's the point right here, because they still have those games in hand, which are slowly trying to catch up. But when those games in hand, it's still really difficult to tell exactly where they are,
Right.
because they might have 2 or 3 games in hand on teams above them. And you think, well, if they got 4 out of 6 points in those games in hand, then they would be in a perfect spot. And so it's hard to gauge that. So think as
Sure.
long as it's around 4 to 5-ish, out and they still look at the remaining schedule, which is very difficult for them, they can still make that run. They can still do that to where they just get in. Obviously, you want to be in a more comfortable position, and by the trade deadline, they're in a wild card 1 or 2. Then you can look at maybe buying a little bit or switching over a little bit to just qualify that third pairing a little bit. Make sure you're adding maybe a little bit of muscle that can contribute on those bottom lines, but still have the same sort of speed element to it, or maybe give Yakov Trenin a little bit more, Colin Blackwell a little bit more. It's looking like that Watson and Yarkov are going to slot back in. So I think there's some options out there too. I don't think they're sellers right now. I don't think they're buyers right now. It might just be a let's see what happens.
Right.
Or you might see Mikael Gladlund be there on the trading block, or even a Craig Smith, who I know wants to stay in Nashville. Yeah. But maybe there's something out there for them as well. So they're in a unique position with a few games left before the trade deadline that it really does matter how they perform these next 2 weeks to see how this team's going to shape up for the future.
Yeah, and not to be over dramatic, I think this coming up weekend against St. Louis, that's one of the most important weekends of this season. I think we need to get out of that weekend with at least 3 points. You know, if we want, I mean, that's a good team that they're struggling right now. So hopefully we can capitalize on that. But yeah, so it was great to have you on once again. We're on the phone with Justin Bradford, host and editor-in-chief of Penalty Box Radio and commissioner of the SECHC. Justin's been great having you, and we hope to talk to you again.
Hey, appreciate it, Justin.
Yeah, thanks, boys. Keep up the good work.
All right, thanks.
We're back here in the studio. I hope he comes back and joins us again.
Yeah, learned a lot. Hopefully he'll feel the same, Bobby. Hopefully the feeling is mutual.
Yeah, so it is now time to move on to this week's Game of the Weeks. And last week you got 8 points, and I got a amazing -1 point.
Didn't even know it was possible, Bobby. You didn't hit anything, man. I felt really bad after the first night when I almost went 10 for 10, but I missed the Columbus game pick last week. And Florida wins, of course. And so I immediately go into this tailspin of I'm going to lose all of these games. And then I end up beating you 8 to -1. So I guess that means I get to go ahead and give my first game pick this week.
Yeah.
And I'll shame you from this side of the mic. First game I have is this Thursday. I actually have 3 Thursday games. So I guess my games of the week that you can't miss, you either have to watch them split screen or you'll have to record them and watch them later. But the first game that I have is the Oilers Lightning. And that's Thursday the 13th. I have the Oilers winning that one, Bobby. Surprisingly enough, I always find a way to get a Lightning game in my picks, and I generally pick the Lightning. So this time I'm going to go with the Oilers over the Lightning.
All right,
Thursday.
So, well, worst of luck to you.
You need it, bud.
Yeah.
You need it.
My first game is going to be the St. Louis Blues versus the Golden Knights. Blues are not playing well. I believe they've dropped 4 out of their last 5. Golden Knights are playing pretty well. They're fighting for.
You hate to see it.
Yeah,
you hate to see it.
But I'm going to take the Golden Knights in that game.
It'd actually be better for us if the Blues win, but
it's not
better
about
for
what's
the
best for us.
Yeah, sure. Sure. Well, maybe you should start guessing with your heart, man. Okay, so my second game that I got the Stars Maple Leafs. And that's also Thursday, the 13th. So. Again, pick and choose out of my games in the week of what to watch. But I have the Maple Leafs beating the Stars, and that will actually be helpful to the Preds as well. So let's hope that happens.
All right. So now for my next game, another Blues. This one, it's unfortunate. I've got the Preds versus the Blues on Saturday. It's a 2 p.m. matinee game. I think the Blues are going to win. Now, my hope is that they at least win in overtime.
You're doing what I did last week,
yeah.
And then you're picking the other team, and then if you're wrong, you're actually happy about being wrong. So I took 2 of my points last week begrudgingly.
Yeah, so I'm hoping that the Preds get 3 points out of that weekend. If they get the loser's point away, and then we've got to start playing better at home. So hopefully they get
we really
2 points.
do.
Yeah, hopefully they get the 2 points on that Sunday, and I'll be there, and I'll be in the crowd, and hopefully it's a good weekend.
Okay, so for my third game, I have the Capitals and the Avalanche, and I'm doubling down on the Caps. We're going to be on Ovi watch, so see if because now I've got a little skin in the game, hoping he doesn't win the Rocket Richard. I'm going to double down on the Capitals winning. That'll be helpful to us. Them beating the Avs, although they're looking stout lately, so I won't be surprised if I lose this double down. What do you got for game number 3, man?
So I've got another Central Division team. I've got Chicago versus Calgary, and that's on another Saturday game. and I've got the Flames winning that game. And I think that the Blackhawks are struggling right now. The Flames are getting almost into desperation mode. And that's going to be my double down game.
Double down and on the Flames. See, that's both are hurtful.
Yeah.
So, bringing up my last game of the week, I have the Bruins Rangers. Obviously, the Rangers are not lighting up the scoreboards as of late, but it's Bruin Rangers. It's on NBC Sunday the 16th, so that'll be a fun game to watch. Again, no football. Well, I guess we got the XFL now, so maybe they'll tune into that. But Bruins Rangers should definitely be a good game. What do you got for your last game of the week?
All right.
Try to score some points this week, Bobby. I hope you picked a layup.
Well, I've got the Oilers versus the Hurricanes, and that's a Sunday game. And on that, I've got the Hurricanes winning that one. I think it's going to be a good game. Hopefully, we'll get to see a storm surge, and I get some points this week.
You're going to need it, man, because I'm obliterating you.
All right. So, time to move outside the NHL, and it's a brand new segment here. And soon, we'll have some music, some drops. But for now, we've just got Mr. Brandon Bond's College Corner. Take us away.
All right, so obviously we're not gonna have this every single week, at least not while hockey season's happening. But the college football recruiting numbers came out, and so I definitely wanted to just kind of go over it and see who we had. I pulled up the recruiting numbers from 24/7 Sports, so it has Georgia up top, Alabama at number 2. Surprise, surprise, that those two teams are ranked so high in recruiting as they have been for what seems like an eternity, especially as an Auburn fan. Number 3, you have Clemson. Again, no surprise. Dabo Swinney pulls in folks. I mean, Clemson's a pretty desirable place to play. Number 4, you have LSU.
Go Tigers.
I think that people signed with LSU just to get Coach O to stop calling their house because they're like, who is this guy? Look, I'm just going to go to LSU, Dad. That's it. Okay, so at number 5, Ohio State. Number 6, we have Texas A&M. Number 7, we have Auburn, War Eagle. Number 8, Florida. Number 9, Texas. To round out number 10, we have Tennessee. So let me ask you, Bobby, bias aside, you think that the Vols are going to be able to take the top 10, that 10 recruiting class, number 10 recruiting class, and do anything with it in terms of, maybe competing for the East?
Competing for the East? No. Do I think they'll make a bowl game? Yes. I think that there is a lot of issues. Now, let me clarify. I'm not an SEC guy. I'm one of those guys. I don't think the SEC is the best conference in football anymore like it was 5 years ago.
7 of 10 recruiting classes say that you're wrong.
Listen, it has the allure. But I think, I'm a Big Ten guy. So, but either way, I mean, I respect the SEC. I understand its dominance.
Big Ten football's garbage, Bobby.
Hey, come at us for lacrosse and baseball.
You're big lacrosse guy. I forgot about your deep lacrosse ties.
I played a little bit when I was a kid, but no. To get back to the point, I think Tennessee's gonna pretty much stay stagnant. Overall, I don't think that they have the gumption to compete for the East. Luckily they're in the East, because if they were playing in the West, they wouldn't compete.
The West cannibalizes one another.
Yeah,
it's one of those rare years where I think the best team got out of the West this year. Yeah. I think there was no question about LSU.
Now, I'm not, like I said, I'm not an SEC guy. You are, so maybe there's a reason why they don't. But honestly, I think that they should get rid of the East and just have the SEC and just have they have that one big conference.
They have that in basketball. Yeah, you're. I think you're barking up the wrong tree here, Bobby, because we're talking about folks that look. I'm even one of those SEC traditionalists where whenever Gene Chizik kind of changed the Auburn jerseys and stuff, fans don't like it. I don't like it. So it's interesting because you lose some of those specific rivalries. Basically, the way it is in football now is you play everybody on your side of the conference, and then you have one constant on the other side of the conference every single year, and you play 2 or 3 other teams on the other side of the conference. So you don't play everybody on the other side, But for example, Auburn's game every single year is Georgia. It's the Deep South oldest rivalry. So when you start pulling specific games like that into question, are we going to have an
obviously
Iron
I would
Bowl
never
every
say
year?
get rid of those big rivalries.
I think that's what you said in the hot take that you just had, Bobby. You
No,
said
listen,
get rid of rivalry games.
No, yeah. Now let's not get too far on that. We'll have a show dedicated more to some college football during the hockey offseason.
Definitely.
And we'll debate the playoff numbers, how many teams. Let's move on from that and talk about early retirement in the NFL. Something, a couple of weeks ago, Luke Kuechly, an all-star, a Pro Bowl linebacker, announced his retirement real young.
All NFL kind of guy too, not just a Pro Bowl because he's popular. I mean, retired at 28, I think it was, Bobby. And so this is starting to be almost more of a trend that you're seeing. You had guys like Barry Sanders do it. Now that was a while ago, but then Calvin Johnson did it. Now, and at first you thought maybe it's just Detroit. they just like, look, I can't go play football anywhere else now. So, but yeah, it's happening, and it sucks for the NFL to lose a guy like Luke Kuechly. But with what we've heard and with what we know now about head injuries and the overtime, how much worse it gets after each head injury you have, I can understand it. I mean, you tell me at 28 years old, I think he's made upwards of 50, 60, 70 million dollars. You tell me that for a 5 to 8 year time period of my life, I can go play football and then never have to work again. There's more appeal to that, I think, with what we know about football now.
It's about that time for Joke of the Week.
Joke of the Week. I don't even have an article, man. This is just something that we saw online.
Yeah, and everyone knows if it's online,
it's true. It's true. It's a fact. Look, guys, it's a fact. But the thing is, I'm almost hoping that it's not true, Bobby, because what we have here was this Ukrainian textbook that had a picture, an old school picture. I'm sure many of you listening will know what I'm talking about. The lunch atop the skyscraper, where all of those workers are sitting on that beam over the city and eating their lunch. No straps, nothing. There was no TOSHA, there was no OSHA, there's no safety laws. It's, get this thing done, eat your lunch on that beam. You can't be sitting in here on the inside. Well, they have put a picture in their book, that picture, except for it's the meme version where Keanu Reeves is replaced one of the guys on the end. And so he's sitting on the end in this textbook, and they printed a bunch of them, and now what a joke, right? What in the world? Why would you? Who pulled that up? Who pulled that photo up? There has to be a better way. There had to be more vetting of the picture. Although it accurately depicts how America is these days. Keanu Reeves is everywhere, and I love it. So
I like to think that picture is actually the real version, and he's actually like a vampire. And he was in that picture.
Nothing would make me happier.
And they had to cover it up. There actually being a vampire, so they put in some random worker guy in his place.
Nothing would make me happier. They're making a Bill and Ted's 2. Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Is it 2
or not?
3?
It's like 6. I don't know.
Yeah.
They were making a new Bill and Ted.
A new Bill and Ted. Yeah, that's what we should have said. All right, so we are pushing into our final Star Wars discussion. So we kind of had an idea a little bit about what we wanted to talk about. But no rankings this week. We may talk about some of our favorite stuff, but something I wanted to talk about was lightsaber forms. And basically what that is the different lightsaber fighting styles that a character or Jedi or Sith force wielder can use.
Yeah, so there are 7 lightsaber forms, and we're just going to do a quick list and kind of give you our opinions on it. Yeah, so the first one is the simplest one, Shicho. It's the oldest and simplest, wide sweeping movements.
It was originally used for fighting large-scale wars.
Yes, because originally, there was thousands of Sith and thousands of Jedi, and it would be battlefields. But one of the masters that we see is Mr. Kit Fisto, one of my personal favorite Jedis.
Kit Fisto was awesome. Now, he met a horrendous demise.
But that's what happens when you use Shicho against one Dark Lord.
Exactly. So, form number 2 is Makashi, and it's more of a finesse form. It's created to rectify the weaknesses of Form 1, the wide sweeping movements. It is purely for dueling opponents, really not a war style. It was more of the later style. And somebody that mastered this and used it quite a bit was Count Dooku, or Darth Tyrannus. He is one of the best duelers in the Star Wars universe.
Oh, yeah. And then moving on to Form 3, Surisu, which I might be pronouncing that wrong. It's known as the defense form, and it's known as to be unbeatable when mastered. And we see that. It's very one-dimensional, hence why there's not a lot of people who learn it. But the master that we see is Obi-Wan Kenobi, which, and spoiler alert for any of you that know, he was only beaten because he wanted to be beaten. If he could have kept that form, he would never have been beaten one-on-one, because he was one of the few masters of that defensive form.
Definitely switched to the Shichu earlier in his life, the Form 1 combat. So Obi-Wan, so Form 3 is offensively defensive, right? Like you defend up into the point that you need to cut off Grievous's hand, type of stuff,
or cut Maul in half.
It's why he was able to, throughout the Clone Wars, battle 2 and 3 opponents at a time, because that style is so conducive to that. So Form 4 is Ataru, and it's the acrobatic form, fast, intensive, and very draining.
One of my favorites to watch.
Yes, you have to be very
nimble,
very strong in the Force, because it is so
draining.
reliant of the Force. Obviously, we all know who mastered Form 4. That would be Yoda.
Yeah,
so Yoda
Master Yoda.
That's a little thought process of who would use that. Now, there's a couple others that will, but not many.
Yeah,
not many, Bob.
Now, moving into Form 5, which is my personal favorite, is Gemso. It's the power form, the most balanced form, focused on power-based strikes, and then you quickly, once you get them off the balance, you parry, you go in for the kill.
I was gonna say, a lot of parry, a lot of waiting for you to come at me, and then me overpowering.
Yeah, and we see the master of this is Anakin Skywalker. So, we see, he's the chosen one.
He's somebody else as well, right?
Maybe. We'll get into that.
All right, so moving in to number 6, Neiman. And again, we could absolutely be referring to these incorrectly with their name, but they're normally Naman. Yeah, see, the most of the time they're referred to by their numbers. So Form 6, it's the balanced form. It combines the principles of all previous forms in an effort to make a perfect form. So somebody you see that's a master of this is Darth Maul.
Yeah. So form number 7, one of the most powerful forms, and it's actually called two different things depending if you're a dark user or light user of the Force. It's known as the Wild form, and in its Juyo variant, which is exclusively used by the Sith, the user, they draw on the feelings of hate, love, and fear and anger of themselves.
So the other half of that is going to be the Vapid fighting style, and so this is a relatively new form on the light side of the Force. Mace Windu actually developed this style, and it is why he was able to, arguably, whether or not Sidious wanted him to, defeat Sidious, because again it plays into the emotions. So when Sidious becomes angry during the fight with Mace Windu gets nothing but stronger through that anger, because he channels that specific style.
And it's one of the more Force reliant forms, because you are connected to the Force the whole time using that form.
It was Samuel L. Jackson developed it. So.
And some of the masters we see with this is Darth Sidious. Darth Maul is actually also a master of this, and Mace Windu. And Darth Maul is.
Are we doing him a disservice by calling him Darth Maul when everybody knows he's now Maul? As he likes to be called? He dropped the Darth. He fell out of favor of the Sith and was just a Force wielder.
So just Maul.
Just Maul.
All right. And we got some quick notes, outside of just the forms. Most of the skilled characters are masters of multiple forms. Anakin uses a hybrid form of Gemso and Ataru, but he specializes mainly in Gemso. Whereas Darth Vader, he might have relation to Anakin Skywalker.
Have you ever seen him in the same room at the same time,
No.
Bobby? No.
But he is a master of Makashi, Sincho, Sarusu, Gemso, and Juyo. So when Darth Vader, gained a new master who was actually a good master, he was able to learn so many more forms because he was able to get away from the propaganda of the Jedi and was able to use his emotions. And there's actually, it's not less a form and more style, which is the practice of Jarkai, which isn't a form, but is the dual blade technique that can be modified to any form, really, and that's very hard to learn, and we see that with Ahsoka Tano.
Saj Ventress as well. She utilizes the it is something you don't see a lot, and mostly because, especially on the light side, they go to the temple or specific cave and get their Kyber crystal, and usually that's the only one they get up until unless they break or something along those lines. So we also wanted to talk about, all right, so where do you lay in the world of,
for me, it's
Jedi
easy.
versus Sith
It's 100% Sith, and here's why. The Skywalker saga and even the other films, the Outsider films, are one big propaganda piece for the Jedi. When you look at it, they are showing it from that point of view, and the fact is that when you watch it, it's very tyrannical. They want to suppress free will. They work outside the government. They work outside laws. Mace Windu is willing to execute a duly elected counselor without taking him to the Senate. Yes.
Such a bad call, right? He was such a good guy.
Now let me be very clear. There is a separation between the Sith and the Empire. Darth Sidious while he was a Sith, did not truly live up to the meaning of the Sith.
No, he had multiple apprentices.
Yes, Darth.
And
When I think of the ultimate Sith, I think of my favorite character in all of Star Wars, which is Darth Bane. Darth Bane never wanted galactic. Never wanted a galactic empire and rule everything. He wanted to live forever. He wanted to bring the Sith back.
No big deal.
He wanted the Sith to be brought back to power, but he wanted it done not by a massive army that rules the galaxy. He wanted it done through himself and an apprentice, and for the rule of two to be brought down through the generations.
Basically, he just wanted to roll around and do whatever he wanted to do.
The Sith's main purpose is to increase free will, and the Jedi are always insistent on suppressing emotion.
You always hear that the Sith are champions of the First Amendment.
And let's be honest here, the Jedi, the lore is weird. To be a Jedi, you have to have a high midi-chlorian count. To be a Sith, not so much. You can connect to the dark side of the Force without having a high midi-chlorian count. So the Jedi, it's not like something where anybody, if you try hard enough, you can be it. You have to be born into it, just like if you're a Bush or a Clinton. So,
yeah, and sometimes you get a better end of the stick than others, huh, Bob? Okay, so where I really land in the whole ordeal is where I land in most things. I'm somewhere in the middle. I'm what I like to consider myself as a gray Jedi. For those of you that don't know,
way to not answer the question.
I'm playing the middle, so that way I always come out on top, Bobby. No, but I mean, no, that gray Jedi is a faction,
yes,
and it is it's essentially what Ahsoka came to be after she was set up and accused of murder. A gray Jedi is a Force wielder that doesn't look at the world in this black and white, do or do not. You can't, there is no try. What do you mean, Yoda? Of course there's try. That's how I do things. I can't just do it.
Which, by the way, that sounds a lot like an absolute.
It is an absolute, and only the Sith deals in absolute. So I absolutely agree with you where
the Jedi are super hypocritical.
There was, yes, but so are the Sith.
Yeah.
So that's where I always landed in the middle, like a Qui-Gon Jinn. And realistically, Count Dooku, before he decided he wanted power, they were more of gray Jedis where, you hear Liam Neeson, Qui-Gon Jinn in the first movie, and he doesn't deal with things quite like Yoda deals with things. There obviously can be multiple outcomes to a situation. Yoda, we haven't all been here for 900 years, The Jedi become very cult-like and very set in their ways. Just imagine that your leader, your boss, doesn't die for 900 years. You know, that guy's not implementing change. He's like, back in my day,
Yeah.
he's like, dude, I'm 45, okay? Like, you're 900.
And I actually found this out about 2 weeks ago. You know, a lot of people, including me, and I'm a big Star Wars fan, thought that the way he speaks is his species. Well, apparently it's become canon that his speech style used to be galactic normal language.
Almost 1,000 years ago.
And then as he, as the galaxy got older, they changed to a more style that we here in the regular world speak, but he kept his dialect and his speech style from 600 years ago.
So you're telling me Baby Yoda is going to sound like Pedro Pascal? It's canon. You told me.
Yeah, well, I really hope they ended up getting Gilbert Gottfried to play Baby Yoda.
Hello!
Do or do not.
Wait, we don't say that.
That sounds like the PE coach from Big Mouth. That's the Gilbert Gottfried.
You can call me Coach Steve.
Hey, it's Baby Yoda, Coach Steve.
I'm not to brag, but I sound like old Yoda.
Anybody who hasn't watched that show is turning this off right now.
They're turning it off. Big Mouth is a great show.
Yeah, go watch that. All right, so that brings us to a conclusion of our 4-part Star Wars discussion.
Star Wars is never concluded, Bobby. It's ongoing.
We will be returning, when season 2 of The Mandalorian comes out in October of this year. We'll be talking about it again. They just announced Project Luminous, which no info about yet, but we'll obviously keep you up to date on that.
We'll keep you enlightened.
But yeah, so starting next week, we're going to start our discussion of Marvel.
I'm actually having to catch up, Bobby.
Yeah.
And because I finished up, when we talked with Justin, I finished up around the Avengers series. So I had Iron Man, I had Iron Man 2 finished, the first Avenger, I had the original Thor, and the original Avengers. That was such an awesome movie, and then it just became too much in my life to keep up with. There were so many movies, I didn't know what order they were in. So now that it's finished, I've actually been doing my part and catching up and watching the Marvel movies.
Yeah,
so.
and just I was over here the other day when you watched Iron Man 3. I quickly fell asleep. Actually, that's one of the movies that's one of the worst.
Weaker movie for sure.
Yeah, I didn't like a lot of it.
Just watch
the whole PTSD thing was just boring to watch, and it was just slow.
I don't know, man. Like, it's not. Look, this man should be seeing a therapist every day. You
Yeah.
know, that would mean
He should have been seeing a therapist before he was Iron Man. Tony
Exactly.
Stark had some issues.
Before he's
got some massive daddy issues that he's got to deal with.
Before he had like a chest piece.
Yeah.
He should have thought about spending a little bit of that money just talking to somebody. Hey, you're having problems out there. No big deal. Talk to somebody. It's
somebody
it'll help
other than
you.
Bruce Banner.
Yeah, Bruce Banner. He doesn't really know what's going on. So
He's got his own issues.
again, I'm not a super loyalist to the franchise and stuff as well.
So now let's segue into what are you binging? What show are you binging right now?
I'm actually binging, and I've been told that I can't believe that I've never watched it. Friday Night Lights, the TV show. It's pretty, it's a good show. You don't have to pay a lot of attention to it. It's pretty predictable for what it is, for sure. But
It's bad towards the end, though.
I know I'm getting there, and I'm definitely that guy that I'll just cut it off, man.
Yeah.
Like when Walking Dead, I think it was season 5 or whatever started.
I cut Walking Dead off right. I think when they left the jail is when I stopped.
Yeah,
It just got boring.
I tried to give it an extra season past that, but I just couldn't, man. And it's so disappointing because season 1 and season 2 of that show is some of the best television that I think I've ever seen.
Yeah.
So it sucked to give it up, and I still got some coworkers that talk about it and stuff. But I bailed out. I think it is, man. I don't know. I gave it up a long time ago. What about you? What are you?
I started the CBS show Picard.
How is that? I've never. I should highlight that by saying, as big of a nerd as I am when it comes to this stuff, I've never been a Star Trek guy.
So let me be honest. I love Star Trek. Maybe not as much as Star Wars, but I'm definitely a Trekkie. The only reason I am still watching it is because I know where it can go, and I know what Patrick Stewart can do. I am caught up on all at the end of episode 3, and it is. I see that it's going to get good because they're just now getting into space. And honestly, it hasn't been great, but it has potential. So I'm excited to see where it can go. I hope they bring back some familiar faces, but it's not as, so far, it's not as, group of friends out on an adventure, a fun show like The Next Generation was. It's definitely trying to be more serious, which is one of the reasons why I kind of stopped watching Star Trek Discovery, which I'll have to give another try sometime. But yeah, but while I'm watching that, I was able to find at my local liquor store one of my favorite beers, definitely top 10, which is Dangerous Man Chocolate Milk Stout.
I saw that. We actually went to the Dangerous Man Taproom Brewery when we were up in Minneapolis.
Yeah,
dude.
and that it was packed, but it was good beer. I mean,
Minneapolis
has great beer.
We made fantastic friends though.
Yeah.
That it was it's very very family style. So you couple seats open up, you got to snag them. So we had a couple that was there, invite us to drink some beer with them, and Dangerous Man was awesome.
Yeah,
it was really good. It was sad that we had to go to 13 other breweries because I would have loved to stay there for 3 or 7 more beers.
Yeah. We'll do a segment later on talking about our trip to Minneapolis. Because we might try and go for the next year's Winter Classic and hopefully do a live show there.
Try to take the girls there.
Yeah,
we're trying to get them up there. They'll hate it.
But, so what are you drinking?
Man, I've just been keeping it classy. Just a little Maker's Mark.
Solid.
Hey, man, nothing beats it. That's my go-to. A lot of people around here in Tennessee are big Jack Daniels fans, and hey, I'm not knocking it personally. I don't dislike it, but dude, there ain't nothing that hit home like a good Maker's Mark. So hey, shout out Danny Tanner, and I'm not talking about Bob Saget here, okay? I'm talking about our buddy Danny. That man loves Maker's Mark more than I do. So
maybe not as much as my dad did. But.
And hey, funnily enough, speaking of Danny, this man invited us to go on his bachelor party with him to St. Louis. He must not have heard the first few episodes. Did you, Danny?
Yeah. So now we know he cut it off about halfway through.
Hey,
but we're excited, man.
No,
it's going to be a great time. We'll catch a cards game, hopefully, and we'll keep you guys updated, and we'll let you know. We might not be recording after that because we might be dead.
We're just statistics.
Yeah. But yeah, so time to talk about last week we had a giveaway for 2 free tickets to the February 18th game, Hockey is for Everyone game, and I am happy to announce that we have a winner, Miss Madeline Young, and so contact us and we'll get you those tickets.
Congratulations.
Yeah. But we're not done yet. We've got another 2 tickets to give away, and it is for the February 27th game against the Flames, and that's Star Wars night. So we'll be there. Be on the lookout on Twitter and Instagram for that, and the Facebook. And speaking of Twitter, you can find us online at Pucks Out Pod on both Twitter and Instagram. Obviously, we're on Facebook. Just search Pucks Out Pod. Give us a follow and stay up to date on all these giveaways. You can get yourself some free tickets. Now let's move in to our favorite segment, What Snaps Your Stick? Brandon, what's snapping your stick today?
I saw one of these at the hockey tournament this weekend, man. Nicknames on the backs of jerseys. Are you kidding me, Hammer? I'm calling you out, Hammer, because, dude, and I'm going to need to see some ID if your name is Hammer. You're a grown-up. I get it. Your boys call you Hammer. That's cool. That's fine. But your name is not Hammer. Why is it on the back of your jersey? That is what sports-wise snaps my stick.
Yeah, so moving into mine, and I feel pretty strongly about this, and that's quote-unquote gatekeepers. Now, there's a lot of gatekeepers for a lot of different things.
What a good call.
But, people who get mad at people for having multiple favorite teams, I think it's bullshit, really. I mean, let people enjoy things. You're not the deity of hockey or football. If somebody wants to be a fan of multiple teams or even multiple players and they don't really care about teams, they just like players, let it go. Personally, I only have one Western Conference team. I've got an Eastern Conference team, and that's about it. But there's a lot of people out there, and I find that this is mostly bros that are directing this towards girls who just, maybe they like one or 2 players and they follow that player. Let them do it. It's not hurting you in any way. But what's snapping your stick outside of sports?
It's a really big recent trend, but video game pay models these days are really starting to snap my stick. Where you just buy a game, And then that was the game. You didn't have to buy 30 additional packages or buy loot boxes or, spend a bunch of money to enjoy the game like other people are enjoying the game. So I hate it. I hate the way that a lot of specific games have gone and how they've done. And sometimes if you do it right, they correct the process and do it better. But most things are loot based and loot box based now. So that's been wearing me out a lot, like the predatory ticket agencies last week. So I'm just going to use this as a platform to just rail on all the business models I hate, I think.
Eat the rich.
Eat the rich. Yeah, exactly.
But all right, so moving on to mine, and this is something that I have been seeing since I was a little kid, and that is people who order well-done steaks and then complain that it's too dry or it's not good. Now,
this is well done, buddy.
Now, my issue with people ordering anything over medium is a different topic. This is simply talking about the people that if you're going to order that well done, fine.
If you like, yeah, exactly. But let people enjoy things.
Yeah.
You get a well done steak and that's what you like. If we're buddies, I'm gonna
Oh,
give you a little bit on it. But
yeah. But don't bitch when it comes out and it's dry, because guess what? It's well done.
Right.
You've cooked all the flavor out of it. It is no longer and you know what? If you're going to get a well done steak, get a hamburger steak. Don't get a good porterhouse or a good filet and ruin it.
Or better yet, don't.
Yeah, that's the best advice I can give you. The most you should be cooking your steak is medium rare.
Yeah, but I hear what you're saying. If you want to have your steak well done,
that's on you.
Have
yeah.
at it.
Enjoy it.
At it, dude. I'm not that guy that
drench
says
it with that
you're
A1 and
right. Enjoy your steak how you like to enjoy it. But exactly what Bobby is saying is true. You can't be mad that it's not good. You chose this for yourself.
So that about wraps up today's show. It's been a great one. Thanks for listening. But Brandon, what did you learn today?
I learned that you don't think that UT is going to win a natty this year, bro.
Not feeling like 98.
How do you know, bro? It's not even fall yet. All right, so what about you, man? You learn anything good?
I learned that Keanu Reeves is a vampire or some mythological creature, and that he was on that lunch atop a skyscraper.
I almost said that, and so luckily I had something different to bring to the table. All right, man.
So
get out of here.
So for Brandon Bond, this is Bobby Butler. This has been the Pucks Out Podcast, a part of the Penalty Box Radio Network. Thanks for listening, and goodbye.
Peace.